In the time of great despair, where freedom was only a mere dream, a secret network known as the Underground Railroad emerged, providing hope to those who were enslaved by white slave owners. To truly understand the significance of the Underground Railroad, we must first acknowledge the deep-rooted history of slavery and its profound impact on humanity. The transatlantic slave trade, which began in the 15th century, saw millions of Africans forcibly taken from their homes and transported to the Americas to work under the brutal conditions on plantations. Life on plantations was marked by harsh labor, severe punishments, whippings, and a constant fear of being sold or separated from their families. In the late 18th century, the Underground Railroad emerged as a network of safe houses, secret routes, and fearless abolitionists dedicated to helping enslaved African Americans escape to freedom in the northern states and Canada. This operation challenged the institution of slavery and played a pivotal role in the fight for freedom for African Americans during one of the darkest periods in American history. The term Underground Railroad was chosen to convey a sense of secrecy among those involved in the abolitionist movement in the United States during the late 18th century through the Civil War. Inspired by the emerging railway system, the Underground Railroad was a metaphor which was used to describe a secret network of hiding places, routes, and guides that helped enslaved people escape from slavery in the southern states to freedom in the north in Canada. Through the use of coded language such as stations, conductors, and cargo, the network maintained a sense of secrecy. Enslaved individuals seeking freedom were known as cargo or freight, while station masters provided shelter and assistance. Conductors led escaped slaves to the next station, ensuring their journey to freedom despite the constant risk of being caught.
Abolitionists were a marginal advocacy group in the early 19th century, often despised, sometimes attacked. And we're talking here about both black and white abolitionists. The abolitionist movement was basically biracial. In some areas, the majority were black, elsewhere the majority were white, and often mixed. So it's very important to understand that it was biracial and that the Underground Railroad was biracial.
The first impression of the Underground Railroad was in the 1790s when abolitionist Isaac Hopper, widely known as the father of the Underground Railroad, started helping fugitive slaves escape. Hopper not only sheltered runaway slaves in his own residence, but also set up a system of secure locations and established a network of sources to gather information about the movements of the slave catchers. Later in the 1820s, abolitionist Levi Coffin, along with his wife Catherine, became prominent figures and provided a safe place for thousands of fugitive slaves in their house. After the Civil War had ended, Levi Coffin published his book Reminiscences of Levi Coffin, which provided a brief history of the Underground Railroad and a collection of stories of fugitive slaves that he helped. Harriet Tubman, who was born in 1820 on a plantation in Maryland, played a vital role as a conductor of the Underground Railroad, leading nearly 70 slaves from Maryland to the freedom of northern states. Harriet Tubman herself was a slave who escaped to freedom in 1849. She was a brave young woman who risked her life and came back to Maryland several times to free many other slaves, including her family members and friends. Born a free man in New Jersey in 1821, William Still was another key figure in the Underground Railroad network. He moved to Philadelphia in 1844, where he became an abolitionist and worked as a station master on the Underground Railroad. He helped about 800 fugitive slaves find their way to safety, documenting their stories and providing shelter and assistance along the way. Throughout its operation, the Underground Railroad faced great risks. Slave owners promised Southerners great rewards for catching their fugitive slaves, and slave catchers and bounty hunters were always on the lookout for escaped slaves and those helping them. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 further increased the dangers as it allowed the federal government to track down fugitive slaves and take them back to their owners, even if they were in a free state. Despite these challenges, the Underground Railroad continued to operate, driven by the goal of ending slavery and ensuring the freedom of those who were enslaved.
Over time, from the 1830s, 40s, 50s, support for abolitionism slowly grew. It was never a majority viewpoint in the North, never. But nonetheless, especially with the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, that radicalized a lot of Northerners, because it meant that the federal government could reach into any town in the North to recapture a fugitive slave. And in fact, the bias of the federal law became to assist in capturing fugitives and so on. And there were enough incidents that it helped radicalize many Northerners who were not activists before, and therefore to strengthen the Underground Railroad.
The Underground Railroad faced opposition from those who supported the institution of slavery and believed that enslaved individuals were property to be owned and controlled. One such advocate was John C. Calhoun, a strong supporter of slavery who vigorously opposed the abolitionist movement and the Underground Railroad. He believed slavery was essential for the economic success of the southern states and saw any attempts to abolish it as a threat to the nation's stability. Calhoun used his influence to suppress anti-slavery efforts and discredited abolitionists as troublemakers. The Underground Railroad's mission of helping enslaved individuals escape to freedom directly challenged Calhoun's pro-slavery belief and policies, causing friction between his views and the action of those involved in the Underground Railroad. The impact of the Underground Railroad cannot be understated. From 1810 to 1850, it freed over 100,000 slaves, raising awareness about the injustices of slavery and contributing to changing public opinion. The Underground Railroad set the stage for the Civil War as it showcased the determination and bravery of those who fought against slavery. Today, we remember the Underground Railroad as a symbol of courage in the fight for freedom. It serves as a reminder of the immense power of human resilience and inspires us to continue the struggle for equality and justice.